Hello and welcome to the ASB Investment Podcast, the show that keeps you up to date on the markets and helps you make smart choices with your investments. These are entirely our own views and that of our guests. It's not investment advice, but we know plenty of experts at ASB that will be happy to chat if you need. Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the ASB Investment Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Nigel Grant. And today we have an extra special episode. We're joined by none other than Vittoria Shortt, CEO of ASB and my employer. Vittoria, thank you for sharing your insights and perspectives with us today and for also joining me, allowing me to do a mid-year performance review live on air. Our listeners and customers are keen to understand your thinking, I'm sure, and I am as well, on the future of wealth in New Zealand, and we appreciate what I'm sure will be an open conversation. It's fantastic to have you on the show, and so welcome.
It's great to finally get an invite to the show.
Thanks for that little subtle dig there. Apart from, it's so good to have you. Apart from running one of the largest organisations in New Zealand, what have you been up to? Is there any, the listeners to get to know you a bit more as well? Family, holidays. Do you get any holidays as a CEO of ASB?
The best time to take holidays is really the Christmas break. Everyone in New Zealand's on holiday.
That's right, yeah.
We've got 2 kids in the States, so we are committed to Christmases in the US at the moment because they don't get any time off with their sport.
Well, so white Christmases.
So white Christmases are our thing while they're studying there.
Fab. Yep. To help paint the picture of you as well, and we here at work about, talks you give and speeches and Friday, wonderful emails as well that go out. Is there anything, I guess, that's shaped your view on finance and savings in your history?
Yes. My sort of thinking around the importance of finance, and particularly as an enabler for your life, it really was shaped early on. When I was very young, Dad ran a small business and got into financial difficulty. And I was too young at the time to really understand much about all of that. But what I saw that definitely had an impact was the emotional toll it took on the family. And so when I was very young, I remembered being very interested in any information about how you could prevent that sort of financial impact.
Right.
So,
yeah. Were you that way minded before that sort of moment, or was that the catalyst to kind of go, like a light went off and I've got to learn about this?
Yeah, definitely the catalyst. I share that I remember I saw something in the paper, I'm going to say it was like in the Herald, around financial independence. And there were words in there that I didn't understand at the time, but they absolutely stuck in my head. And one of them was assets, that if you could invest in assets and get a return, that you could get this financial independence. And so I remember being asked, what would I like for Christmas? And so my answer was assets.
Incredible answer. Love it.
I didn't really know what they were though, but it was a thing.
Yeah, it's a hell of a Christmas cracker, I guess, joke. What do you want for Christmas? With that, I guess, background in mind, let's start with, I guess, the first kind of area I wanted to explore was, the big picture view. From your seat, I guess you see a lot more than I would, and you're talking to a lot more people from different walks of the bank or areas. What does the future of wealth and investing or the financial health of New Zealand look like? Is there anything that you see evolving, or where are currently things at, or where they might be going?
I think just starting with, what is the purpose of ASB? And we have always said that it's about progress for all New Zealanders. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is, well, how do we do that? And what we do is we support Kiwi with all of the ways that they can invest and make progress. So whether that's deposits, saving for a home, whether it's KiwiSaver, investments, or investing in your own business. We look after all of those ways that people can make progress, and that's at the heart of our strategy.
And are there any emerging, I guess, trends or challenges, whether it's informing the ASB strategy, or I guess, investing, whether it's businesses or individuals, anything that you think in your time in the CEO chair or that you've observed, is there anything happening now more that investors or businesses need to be mindful of?
Volatility. I think hands down, if I think about the last 5 years, whether it's the way that we run ASB or whether it's what we see with our customers, it's how do you handle the volatility? We've seen the fastest increase in interest rates followed by the fastest decrease.
Yes.
It's been up and down really sharply. And, markets have moved. We've been through COVID, inflation. So I think the really important thing is how do you stay the course through a very volatile period, which, and again, look at geopolitics at the moment, incredibly volatile. So how can you stay the course during periods like that?
And before I get into the next topic, I just want, as our leader or one of the nation's most important leaders, how do you separate that signal from noise? Is there any, because I guess there must be so much potential noise that hits you every day, whether you want it or not.
Yes.
Is there anything kind of is it just more anchoring on having a great strategy and letting that cook? Or is there any techniques you could impart?
So I think about one concept that is really important for the bank, and I think it's really important for our customers.
Yeah.
And really that concept's about resilience. So for the bank, we think about what are our settings so that we can be really resilient. We're holding loads of capital, loads of liquidity, and it gives us the real confidence that we have got a bank that can see through all of the difficult times today, yesterday, and going forward. It's one of the reasons why we're 178 years old. Yeah. So resilient settings, I think, are really important. And then it's the same thing in households. How can you make sure that you've got just a bit of money tucked away so that you can be resilient? Same thing with businesses. How do they think about their balance sheet settings? How do they think about their cash flow? It's the old adage, prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
Yeah.
With those settings comes some confidence.
Yeah, and I guess you naturally bring up 178 years. I guess if you have that, you're a custodian of a wonderful business for a small, time. I guess for a household, I'm the same. I'm a custodian of my family. I can imagine there's some lessons there for business owners and and households alike. Yeah. One of the other big things that's happening this year is obviously the election, and the country's heading to the polls. So conversations about our collective financial future are going to be taking, centre stage once again. There's always a lot of ideas and suggestions floated in years like this around whether it's housing, savings, investments, retirement, or infrastructure, and these can, obviously not shape not only individual prosperity but also the well-being of New Zealand and our communities. Firstly, and KiwiSaver has been coming up a little bit in the last couple of weeks with our sort of government or opposition pronouncements. Is there anything that comes to your mind when it comes to, I guess, with respect to KiwiSaver and its impact on building out that resilience potentially?
Yeah, definitely. I think no matter what, one of the best things anybody can do is put some money into KiwiSaver. And there's loads of financial literacy about how important that is for every individual.
Yeah.
And so one of the really big topics that I hope gets a lot of discussion this election, and on a bipartisan basis, is increasing our KiwiSaver contributions.
Great, yeah.
And I say bipartisan, we may not agree with some small details, but I think the direction of travel has to be focusing on KiwiSaver as an enabler for everyone in the country.
KiwiSaver's, maybe 140, 150 billion, depending on which way the wind blows. But do you see it, I guess if you put a different head on like the business banking side of the bank, do you see KiwiSaver forming an even bigger part to play in the NZ economy, not just for the saver, but maybe for our
That's
businesses?
Right. I mean, there's a lot of talk around the emergence of superannuation in Australia.
Yes.
And the ability for superannuation to be able to deploy capital into the Australian marketplace. And so we can see, when we look across the ditch, that there are benefits to the Australian economy as a result of a very developed superannuation scheme.
Yeah.
So that's certainly something that should be in our sights.
Can't be a bad thing. And I guess you're frequently also engaging with other key leaders around the country, whether that's the political side or the business side, and I'd probably say international leaders as well. Is there anything you're hearing from them on their thoughts towards building savings? Is someone doing something that we're not that you think we should?
I'm coming back to KiwiSaver then.
Yeah.
There are a lot of economies where that is more advanced.
Yeah.
I do think that there are changes that can be made, and the current government's made some changes already. I think one of the things that I think I admire in terms of some of the overseas settings is long-term planning. So what I would encourage us to do is, again, have this bipartisan long-term planning rather than short-term announcements.
Yeah.
So let's set out the roadmap. What does the roadmap look like, for example? And topics of that would be KiwiSaver as an example, but infrastructure, long-term, 3-decade style of roadmaps.
I was going to ask you.
You were going to go to infrastructure, were you?
Well, no. I was more going to go, what do you consider long-term?
Right.
But if it's, decades, we're talking instead of like maybe 2 to 3 political cycles.
Right. So, some topics need longer term. And, one of the things I really admire and am learning about Te Ao Māori is the 100-year view.
Yeah.
And so for some things you can think about the 100-year view. For some things, a 30-year roadmap might be the right time frame. And again, I bring that to infrastructure. And you can say, and when you think about KiwiSaver as an example, we should be thinking about lifetimes.
Yes.
So that needs a multi-decade sort of thought process around what does it look like to set up for, a great retirement? Because let's face it, we're all living longer.
That's, well, hopefully so. I always love that. I think it's, there's always Buffett quotes, Buffett or Munger, one of the, plant trees that you will never sit under.
Yes.
And
great
sort of those
saying.
things. So I guess before I get into infrastructure, because I know that's a real key focus for us and for you, and I've heard you talk, as an interim to that, is there anything that, when you're setting strategy or doing initiatives that you won't be there for maybe the benefit to the customer? Is there anything, how do you, manage through that?
A lot of it, actually. Like there's so many things that
you're doing that you won't potentially see the outcome.
Absolutely. An example of that is our financial wellbeing work. We set out to say, what does financial wellbeing look like for the country? And we did a lot of research, done a lot of building tools for people to use. We've been monitoring that for 6 years, but that's kind of like a lifetime of work, helping people step by step. Just take, and again, it's about all of the small, little, tiny things that people can do that really add up.
Yeah.
It's a lesson I think about myself. I was lucky enough, I guess, to spend some time working in Australia, and they had compulsory contributions.
Yeah.
I benefited from that.
Yeah, just being forced to save.
Just being forced to save.
Yeah.
And it's not until you actually get older that you go, wow, I'm so glad that happened.
Young me might not have, if I had the chance to opt out of it, might not have.
Young me might have spent a bit more on a car. I don't know.
Put that aerofoil on the back instead of just the standard, like the factory settings. The other theme we've touched on it already is to get your thoughts on is infrastructure, and keen listeners will know that we've been talking about how infrastructure has been a growing part of ASB's or our investment portfolios with our work with BlackRock. And we've also, I've heard you speak a number of times on its criticality to NZ's future. Just why is it front of mind for you so much, and potentially the bank?
We did a bit of research. We've been spending a lot of time thinking around, the country. How does the country prosper? What are the enablers of that prosperity? And one of them is infrastructure. And so the research we did said basically New Zealand needs $1 trillion worth of investment in the next 30 years in infrastructure, and infrastructure of all categories. So that can be roads, it can be hospitals, it can be education. So infrastructure that enables the country. Let's face it, that $1 trillion is going to have to come from a lot of different places. Yeah. And to be able to execute on that, you need a lot of different skills as well, which is why it's so important to have a multi-decade timeframe and roadmap so that you can get the surety of those skills. That then promotes confidence in the delivery, which also promotes confidence in attracting the capital.
So the skills aren't just potentially people that the tunnelling machine, is it? It's the whole stack
of skills that you need
to attract money and...
Absolutely. Woe to go. And so, one of the things that we've been doing is investing in those skills. So we've been trying to find different people around the world who have had a lot of infrastructure experience, attracting them to ASB so that we can think about how we can support...
And play our part. Shifting to kind of, the next generation, I guess we've talked a little bit about it. We're seeing younger generations approach wealth building differently. Like we've done events around the country in sort of towards the end of last calendar year, and a lot of people and couples who'd done really well in their life. We talked about different themes and different, challenges they were facing. One of the ones that came up at every event was, my kids have started investing more than I thought. How do I slow them down? Or some of these questions. That's potentially a good problem to have. But are you noticing anything differently in your time at ASB from start to now around younger generations and how they're thinking?
So it's a definite trend. I think one of the, in terms of young children becoming very interested in investing in different asset classes, and I think that's a very healthy thing. The one thing that troubles me, though, is some of the motivation for it. And some of the motivation is we feel locked out of homes.
Right.
And I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like the sense that younger generations have given up on the idea of something that they want, which is a home.
Yeah.
And so that is something, just as a little segue, that is something that, again, ASB is really focused on. If I think about up and down the country, Christchurch is an area where they've got really good stability in home loan prices. They've had the opportunity to really think about the supply of homes,
Yes.
which is matching demand, and that's creating a better equilibrium.
Yeah.
So, we need to think about what's our role to play in helping make sure that there is a supply of affordable, warm, dry, safe homes and multiple ways to get into them. And so, again, that's an area that ASB is really investing time and energy and effort in trying to play our part to bringing that supply on so that the home ownership goal can be achievable. So
And I guess that's, I like where you focus there, because it's not necessarily supplanting the home and its importance. It's almost like the home will continue to be a part, if you're lucky to consider it a portfolio, or if it's just your home, it's still central. Because you might not think you need a home when you're maybe by yourself, but once you couple up, you still want to go to IKEA and kit their house out, right?
I love IKEA.
Incredible, isn't it?
Yep. Spend a lot of time there.
But it remains central, right? So it's not a case of replacing it.
I always think about, financial independence, financial well-being. Every family and every individual will have different aspirations, right?
Yeah.
But you want to be able to make sure that we're creating the conditions, again, in this country so that it's possible. You're helping
Yes.
people make progress towards. And the home is still central for a lot of people's thinking. Whether you're young and you want an investment property,
Yes.
that old adage of, get into the home loan market, you might not be able to afford to live in it yourself, so you can rent it out and start that
or
way.
your work and uni might be in different spots.
Exactly, or come together with a couple of people. There's multiple different options there. But back to your actual original question, there's a lot of interest in other forms of investing, particularly equities.
Yes.
Other forms, ETFs, investments, etc. So, and I think KiwiSaver's played a bit of a role in that too. Young people, as soon as you get your first job, KiwiSaver is opening people's eyes into what is this thing and what's behind it.
Yeah, and I guess also that, when it starts to potentially grow more for markets doing its thing than just your contributions is sort of that sea change. Is there any advice, I guess not necessarily to the person that mentioned I want assets for Christmas, but maybe, that example you've just said around the first home buyer maybe phase of your life when you were there, is there any advice you'd give that person now based on what you know?
I personally think that you have to get advice and support from somewhere. I would reach out. There's so many great places to get advice.
Yes.
And obviously ASB is really happy to provide it too. So that would be my number one piece of advice is get advice.
Yeah, don't suffer in silence and think you have to, just ask TikTok for it.
Yep.
I want to make sure we just don't focus on the youth of today. Like we try and always take both sides of sort of the balance sheet as such. But for those in or approaching retirement, again, the same sort of question from a couple of questions before. Have you noticed any changes that New Zealanders in this life stage are making or we need to be more aware of? Obviously, the thing that I follow that you're very strong advocate for is being careful on frauds and scams. But is there anything else that you kind of is top of mind for that generation?
As an aside, frauds and scams, that goes for everyone.
Fair
Young,
point, yeah.
old, businesses.
Yeah.
Some of the business frauds are massive, but we can
Yes.
segue off into that
Yeah.
later. But again, I think it's volatility because, if you've been able to sort of save for your retirement and you're watching it move up and down as markets move up and down,
Yes.
you've got to be really thoughtful about what fund you're in, how's that performing.
Yeah.
Again, though, that's back to trying to make sure that you can see through some of the noise, but get advice.
Yes.
I would say the same thing with everyone. Don't react, stay calm, get advice.
Yeah, we did a talk to NZ law firm the other day, me and Christine Brown, and one of the questions was basically what is a fund manager's sort of core role? And I sort of went, well, when something hits the fan, you got to be there.
Yes.
And they've got to hear and see, because every correction's normal until it's the one you're in. And so it's kind of like, it's our job to really step in. That's what the podcast has always been designed to do. But it's interesting you raise volatility because it is so central and you think you're okay with it until it happens.
Exactly. So I'll give you a couple of examples actually. So if we just use some in recent memory, COVID, what we saw during COVID was a lot of volatility. And unfortunately, we saw a lot of people panic,
Yes.
take money out of funds,
Yeah.
only to, down the track, put them back into funds.
Yes.
And during the process, they had lost some
Crystallised.
money. That's right. They'd crystallised a loss. And if they had not done that, they would have been in a better financial position.
Yeah.
And in recent sort of market volatility, we've really tried to share some of our insights about that. And the pleasing thing is people are feeling more calm about it, and we're seeing less of that type of activity. So I think that's good, that the message is getting through and people are preserving their capital, which is really nice.
Oh, it's our core thing. As I said, we need, you need to be available. It's when you're handing over something you've potentially worked your whole life for, or that $1,000. You need to see the whites of the eyes of the people that are there for you.
And then the other thing I always say, and this is not financial advice, but the people who think they can beat markets. There's a lot of people who are like, no, I can beat the market.
Yes.
And we know how many people sit behind the investments that we're offering.
Yes.
All of those deep specialists, global specialists in every type of asset and the asset allocation, how that comes to be. I always worry when people think that they can beat markets on their own.
Yes.
Without the skills and expertise.
You've got to have
it's not something I'm going to do anyway.
No, pretty confident. Well, you wouldn't have time to anyhow.
True.
You've got other things to to do.
True.
Getting to sort of the end of our conversation, but how has ASB evolved from the Auckland Savings Bank 178 years ago to kind of today's ASB, that breadth of offering? Is there, I guess, what's the ambition driving ASB's strategy, and where you're taking, I guess, the bank in the future?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what are the things that you want to hold true to. So what are the things that you want to be known for 178 years?
Yeah.
And then what are the things that are changing?
Yeah.
The obvious changes. We've gone from just Auckland to the whole of the country. We've gone from just savings to having a full suite of offerings for our customers. So those are some really obvious changes. But what are the things that you want to absolutely hold true to? And for that, we think about our whakapapa, our 178 years, and we draw a lot of, I'm going to say, inspiration from what we've always been known for. We've always been about the community. Mm-hmm. We've always been about helping people make progress and save. That was our very origins. And time again, we've taken steps to really show both of those things. And then the other thing that we're known for that I really love as well is we say innovation, but what our customers say is super useful.
Yeah.
So they're just like, do things that are super useful for me. And so we always think about, well, what are those super useful things? And we think about that right across the whole business.
Yeah.
So how do we stay true to what we're all about, progress for all New Zealanders, making sure that we're always part of communities and building communities in this country, and then doing things that are super useful for people. Yeah,
and I guess those can be your anchors that when decisions hit you every day, you can stress test them against those.
That's right. And it doesn't matter what part of the business.
Yeah. Like not the sniff test, but it's almost like the anchor test or these key pillars. In your time, I guess, how long have you been CEO?
8 years.
Okay, I've been here.
8 and a bit.
No, I've been here, so...
And two on the board.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we're still on the board, but before that.
Yes. Before I was CEO, I was on the board for 2 years.
So you've been here for almost all of my time at ASB. I guess, what are some of the key things that stand out in this time that we've done for investors, I guess, in New Zealand and for us? I guess the standout one is obviously we brought on some capability with a certain asset manager.
Yes, that's right. And I think that's pretty well known publicly. But if I take a step back, actually, before we made that decision, we really believed in the value of KiwiSaver and our investments business and how that would complement all the other ways that people can invest and make progress. And we wanted to make sure that we were building capability everywhere in every part. And so what I mean by that, we wanted to make sure we had great global expertise. And yes, that's where we made a big investment to bring on BlackRock and as a partner, and that's been phenomenal. But it's not just that. We wanted to build more capability. And so we have external experts come in and really challenge us and what we're doing. And that's through, we have a sub-board, actually, with deep external expertise. We also have an investments committee where we also have externals. So, we're really inviting a lot of challenge to help us continuously raise the bar on all aspects of what we do. So whether that's what types of funds, how do we communicate to all of our customers when markets are moving or what have you, how do we make sure that we've got nice, easy experiences to help support people making decisions around what fund they're in. So every single part of our business, we're really trying to up our game by investing in it and really seeking this sort of outside-in challenge.
Yeah, you're always seeking to, we are, learn and be tested on our thinking. So if
Absolutely.
you can't
Raise
be
the bar.
closed off. That's right, continually. And to that point, I guess, I was delighted to state that ASB has just been named the KiwiSaver Fund Manager of the Year for 2025 at the Morningstar NZ Awards. This is the first time we've won this award in nearly 10 years. I think it was when I just started. We actually won it, but again, it's kind of in a much bigger competitor swimming pool now. And so, what makes this so exciting is that it shows our continued commitment, in delivering for our customers, our investors, to what Vittoria's been saying. And we thank them for their trust they've placed in us. It just fuels us to get better. Vittoria, I guess that's the perfect illustration, right, of what you just, been saying.
Yeah, I'm super pleased, obviously, because it's not our money, it's our customers' money. And all of that investment, everything that we've been trying to do has paid off in better outcomes for our customers.
Yeah.
So that's years and years and years of consistent execution.
Yeah.
And so I'm stoked.
Yeah, I guess it's, we always like to be number one, right?
We do.
And so finally, we've talked a little bit about how through volatility, we want our customers to engage with us and reach out, and it's our job to also, get out to them. But whether it's investing or business building, anything in their financial well-being, any things that are front of mind for you to, for listeners, how they can engage with us, wherever they are on their journey.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a plug for the podcast.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
But, it's back to, what I said originally. Come and get some advice. Sit down, have a chat. Ask all of those questions that perhaps you haven't asked before.
Yeah.
And learn. It's a really important, I think, I describe it as financial independence, the ability to do the things that you want to be able to do in life. Spend the time trying to understand it because it can really help support the life that you want to live. So just come and get that advice. Listen to Nigel's podcast.
Thank you. It's couldn't get a better plug. I guess it's, just start, right? The best time to start is yesterday. Second best is today, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And now to our favourite, or my favourite question, and I'm sure it's yours as well, Vittoria, having listened to all of our podcasts, I'm sure. It's one that I ask all of our guests. What's something that you're reading, watching, or listening to that you would recommend to our listeners? Or all the staff who will be listening and who will now be doing exactly this?
I don't have a lot of time to watch much, actually, so I'll leave that category. But reading, I think some books have had a really big impact on me in terms of reading. So in my, in the part, actually this is university, the only text I ever remember from university was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, had a profound impact on me then. But currently I'm reading a book called Fast Forward.
Yes.
It's quite topical now because it's a lot about volatility and how do you make sense out of the noise and what signals are you trying to sort of understand and how do you go about that. So it feels very relevant right now. So that's on the business side of it. And on the personal side of it, I love a good Booker Prize winner, Luminaries, Eleanor Catton, young Kiwi author.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I'm reading Orbital. So don't worry, this is not a big tome like Luminaries was. It's a really nice little book around astronauts in space called Orbital. So a great read.
And because I've read Man's Search for Meaning off the back of you recommending, I'm sure, I'm not sure where I first heard it when you started. Amazing book, sense of purpose, finding meaning in probably what is the worst environment you could.
That's right.
Was it prescribed reading at university or did you find it?
No, it was actually prescribed reading. And I always thanked the professor it was a fourth year class and it really hit this chord with me. And actually just sidebar, but I recently went to Poland to watch one of my sons compete. So we went to the concentration camp and I bought a bunch more copies, some for the kids and another one for me.
Yeah.
So, because I had lost my original. So,
it's back on the bookshelf.
So it's back on the bookshelf and you can read it in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. It probably has different significance in different phases of your life.
Yeah.
But yeah, reconnected with that book again.
Because my wife does family therapy, couples therapy and things, and also knows a lot of sort of the psychology text. And so she saw that, I'd bought it, and then she got me off the back of it. And I mentioned you'd recommended it, but she found The Happiest Man on Earth, which was what I was going to say today off the back of, and that's from a chap called Eddie Jaku, who's an Australian Holocaust survivor. Similar thing, not an arduous read in terms of volume, but again, that those wonderful stories, finding joy and positivity even in extreme situations.
Yeah.
But like a chap who immigrated to Australia and then...
Yeah. I mean, I think, there's a lot to take out of that, particularly right now, again, because there's a lot going on in our world.
Yes.
And it can feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so I think, grabbing and same thing with New Zealand, there's a lot of naysayers as well around headlines and difficult things that, you don't want to read about our country. But I think the important thing is to try, for me, and this is the way I always try and think about it, there's so much beauty in this country. And I don't mean beauty in the physical landscape, there's that too.
Yeah.
But there's so much good about the country. And so we've got to get in and really make the most of the natural environment that we've inherited. And I think there's a lot that this country can really achieve and deliver if we get our minds working in that way together.
Gosh, I'm ready to walk the able Tasman now. I've got all the motivation after hearing that. So Vittoria, thank you so much for joining us today. I really thank you. It's been awesome to have you here. I feel like we should have had you here earlier, but we got you for this one, so hopefully we can have you back, for sharing your valuable perspectives and on that positivity and future of wealth in New Zealand. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, and we look forward to seeing how your vision continues to shape the banking industry and inspire New Zealanders and our staff. So thanks again for your time. I hope you had a good time.
Cheers. Thanks for having me on the show.
And thanks to you, our listeners, for joining us again for this extra special edition. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we hope to get Vittoria back sometime in the future as well. Until next time, happy investing, and bye for now. Thanks for listening to the ASB Investment Podcast. If you have any thoughts on this episode, or if there's anything you'd like us to discuss on a future show, get in touch with us at podcasts@asb.co.nz.